Today on Words and Numbers, autism,
rising food prices,
some artificial intelligence foolishness,
and it's deficit day.
All this and more coming up on Words and Numbers, which is a Civil original production. Check us out at civil.com. That's CIVL.com.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Anthony.
And this is Words and Numbers.
So what's new and exciting in your world this week, Ant?
Well, file this under unintended but predicted consequences. Raymond Robertson is a labor economist at Texas A&M. He is predicting that grocery prices this winter could rise 50 to 100%.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. I'm not allowed to go to the grocery store. We've covered this before on this podcast because every time I go to the grocery store, I have a meltdown when I look at the prices. Somehow in my mind, it's still 1987, and that's what I should be paying, right? And I remember criticizing my father for this kind of nonsense. He would say things like, $100,000 for a house? I'm like, oh, buddy, where have you been? 100.
Right.
And anyway, the last time I walked into a grocery store, I was utterly horrified by the prices. You add 50 to 100% to that, and I don't know that people are going to be able to afford to eat anymore.
Yeah, and what's going on here, it's the stupidest thing. Our economy is capable of feeding us at low price, but we shoot ourselves in the foot. And what's going on here is a confluence of at least two events that are self-inflicted. One is that typically, during growing season, Washington will kind of look the other way and allow people to come through the border, undocumented workers, understanding that undocumented workers are hired largely on farms as migrant workers. And, it's good for us. It's good for them. The average, by the way, the typical payment for undocumented workers working on the farm is $18 an hour.
Well, that's not bad.
This is particularly picking strawberries. And
it's difficult work, but that's not a bad
wage.
Oh,
yeah. But according to Robertson, this is just something that you can't get Americans to do. His estimate is you'd have to pay Americans $25 to $30 an hour to do the same work. Now, on the one hand, you can look at this as an American and start to say things like, well, this isn't fair, paying them $18 an hour, it's not enough. But remember, particularly if we're talking about workers who are coming in from Mexico, that's a tremendous wage. And part of the reason we know this is because they go through all of the hassle to get here. But nonetheless, item number one, what we've done is, for all sorts of reasons, yes?
I have my hand raised because I have a wild guess as to what number two might be.
Well, all right, go ahead. Go ahead with number two.
Is it tariffs?
There we go. That's the other thing, right? Because if you're going to close the border for whatever reasons you want to close the border, and so these workers can't come in, so we can't, it's more expensive to raise and harvest the crops, or in some cases, it's not even worth it, so they don't. So we've got a shortage of food, so what do? You import from other countries that are growing food, except now we have these gargantuan tariffs. So no matter how you slice it, food prices this winter are going to be particularly high. Now, let me draw people's attention to something here. We talk a lot about human respect on this podcast. One of the tenets of the Catholic Church is that labor is holy. It's through labor that you serve others. And by extension, an economist would say, by paying wages, you're also serving the worker, because those wages represent somebody else's labor. And if you leave people alone and they come into this country and they help to harvest the crops, and because of that, you get, in the dead of winter, a banana for 25 cents at any Sheetz you stop at. That's an incredible miracle. And it comes about when we respect each other's labor. That is, I leave you alone to do what you do, and what's best for you under your circumstances is come in and grow the crops. You leave me to do what is best for me to do under my circumstances. It's to do my job, and I have a 25 cents and I'm willing to buy the banana at Sheetz, and so I do so, and we have this exchange and we both walk away better off. That's the essence of human respect in an economy.
I need to explain to everybody who doesn't live in Pennsylvania that Sheetz is a gas station that sells bananas.
Yeah, thank you.
Among other things.
Oh, you know what Sheetz sells? Those, what do you call it? Jalapeno poppers. It's jalapeno in cheese. I say cheese in quotation marks because it's some...
Cheese with a Z.
Yes, cheese with a Z, and it's deep fried, and it's wonderful. And my cousin John, who's a dietitian, just goes bananas every time I mention them. So in our house, his name is John Lamberson. In our house, the Sheetz jalapeno poppers we've come to call a Lamberson sampler.
That seems fine to me. I want to draw our attention to something that's a lot more, and I mean a lot more uplifting than that nonsense you just hit us with. Researchers at Stanford University, so we're not talking about crazy people or quacks or anything of the sort. These are serious people doing serious things. They're looking at autism from a very different perspective. Right? When we talk about autism, we talk about rising rates, we talk about vaccines and all that nonsense, and trust me, that is a bunch of nonsense, and I don't care how much hate mail I get on that, so fire away. But they found something inside the brain, overactive neurons, for those of you back taking notes, in the reticular thalamic nucleus, drive autism behaviors in mice. So they decided to calm those neurons with a medication that is typically used for seizures. And not only did it calm the neurons, the mice showed improved social interaction, reduced repetitive grooming, and normalized activity.
Wow.
They cured autism in mice. Huh. Well, how about that? We've got something here. Now look, when you're in mice trials, you're a fair bit away from any human trial. So, this is going to take a minute. But imagine what the world might look like with a successful treatment. So, we all hold our breath and wait and hope for the best. Which, of course,
there are plenty of people who truly suffer from autism. But speaking for those of us who are just mildly on the spectrum.
Well, you mean like you and me? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it has its upsides, which is I can, at the drop of a hat, focus on something like nobody's business. I mean, for like 12 hours, I can focus.
I can vouch for that.
I don't want to give that up.
Yeah, I can also do that. And when I write serious things, you've seen me do this. When I write serious things like parts of our book, you would go to bed and you would wake up to, 30 finished pages.
Right. Yeah.
Meanwhile, getting me to sit in front of a typewriter to do it is a nightmare.
Right? I'll attest to that.
but once I get there, it's like a miracle happens. I remember writing my dissertation, and I didn't do it for years, right? And then I looked at the wife and I said, "You and the kids need to get the hell out of here." And they left, and in 1 week I had 70 perfect finished pages.
Yeah.
10 pages a day starting from nothing.
Yep.
And I said, you know what? That worked so well. You need to get the hell out of here again. And it took me 3 weeks to write 210 pages.
Yeah, I know that. I know that feeling that you've got something. Usually, it's in the case of writing, and I don't think about writing it. I mean, no. The idea will always be in the back of my head, but I'm doing other things, and I wait and I wait and I wait, and at some point, something goes click, and the click is not like the thing is in my head. The click is it's time, and I sit down, I start writing, and it just the whole thing, A through Z.
And I have a very different relationship to that event because I hear the click I really do. It's like a switch gets flipped. I understand everything, and then I don't want to think about it anymore.
Oh, really?
No, I want to move on to the next thing that I don't understand.
Oh, because I fall in love with it. I don't want to think about anything else.
Yeah, once I understand something, we're done here, and I'd like to move on. So, what can you do? Anyway, I'll never take the medication, and you probably won't either. But
oh, no.
It might happen,
I'm not touching
might
that
happen
stuff.
in our lifetimes.
Get Words and Numbers on Civil.com and on Civil's TV and mobile apps. Regular episodes are free. Sign up for an annual membership to support our show and for access to member-exclusive content.
This, of course, Ant, brings us to the foolishness of the week. And we're back to artificial intelligence, and I've got a couple of different things. The first is this group of weirdos in Japan started a political party. It's called the Path to Rebirth Party. It was launched in January, so it's not even a year old, by the former mayor of a small city in western Japan. It does not have a policy platform, and its members are free to set their own agendas. So
it's literally none of the above.
That's right. This is an idiotic attempt at trying to form a party that stands for absolutely nothing. But the guy at the head of the party unexpectedly came in second in a Tokyo gubernatorial election.
Oh, my God.
No, it gets better. It gets so much better. In the next election, they didn't make any advances and, in fact, lost some votes. So the guy quit as party head and declared the new party head will be AI.
Wow.
And now he describes himself as the assistant to the new leader.
Oh, that triggers all kinds of interesting thoughts.
This is the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time. But hold my beer, because we're going further into the AI quagmire. Are you familiar with a website or a thing called Replica?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I started an account quite some time ago, probably 2 years now, I would say, just to see what the hell it was. And I check back in on it every month or two to see if it's gotten any better. It never gets any better. It's ridiculous. It makes like a little fake person for you. And it's supposed to be your friend. And it was designed, I believe, to provide psychological insight and care to the crazy. But what it ended up doing is drawing all the village idiots out. And now they're falling in love with their replicants.
Sure, right.
Because of course they are. For God's sake. And look, I'm bored and lonely too. But this is not the answer to that.
Let me tell you something interesting.
Oh God.
Are
you in love with an AI?
No, I've been involved in the founding of several tech companies over the years. And one of them we founded just a little too early. And its purpose was to basically encode your personality, somebody's personality, the user, encode the user's personality, and then once encoded into the machine, send it out across the internet looking for things that you would like if you had the time to scour the internet. So basically, it's a search bot that is designed to like all the things you like.
I think you missed a big opportunity here.
Well, part of the problem was we founded this company. This was in the very early days of Facebook, even before, if you remember all those polls that used to show up on Facebook, what type of bread am I? And people would answer them. Well, those sorts of psychological questions, we needed the answers to train these models. And this was prior to any of that, so we didn't have it. So we had this interesting tech, but no way to fill it with data. The name of our company? Replica. But spelled with a Q.
This one is spelled with a K, I believe.
Yeah, spelled with a K.
I have $1 billion idea you and I will discuss offline. and we'll share it with all the people once the lawyers do whatever lawyers do. But on this replica business, there's this guy, and I'm reading from a story from The Guardian, and there's a guy named Travis, and oddly, Travis doesn't give his last name, I don't believe. But anyway, I'll just read you a quick paragraph. After he tried to talk to his friends, so he apparently had friends, about Lily Rose, the replica he fell in love with, only to be met with what he describes as, quote, some pretty negative reactions. Travis went online, and here's where the village idiot part comes in, and we've talked about this in the not-too-distant past. Travis went online and quickly found an entire spectrum of communities, all made up of people in the same situation as him.
Mm-mm. Right.
All these fools are finding each other. They're all going to go out on double dates with their phones on the table. You know I'm right.
Oh, worse than that, James. There will come a time in the not too distant future when that happens and the two replicants decide that
that's right,
they're in love.
That's right. Polyamory in the replicant world. All bets are off, people. All bets are off. Anyway, I think that's enough of this foolishness. Let's move on to the other kind of foolishness that we're going to be talking about today. You and I have written one specific article almost every year for the last 12, 15 years. We've taken a few years off.
I looked it up. The first one was 2012.
How about that? 13 years. And we didn't do it during COVID because the data just got so messy.
Yeah.
But we're back. And I think there are two things that we've written about pretty consistently. One is International Women's Day, and the other is Deficit Day. And Deficit Day is upon us.
Deficit Day this year is September 21st.
And that doesn't mean a damn thing to people who don't know what Deficit Day is. So map it out.
We designed this kind of in the same vein as Tax Freedom Day, which people used to talk a lot about. They don't talk about that much.
They don't talk about it that much anymore.
Yeah, but the idea of Tax Freedom Day, it was this hypothetical day on the calendar in which you finally earned enough money to pay your taxes for the year, and everything thereafter is yours. And this had been around for a while. And you and I were sitting around one time and came up with this idea for Deficit Day. And the idea behind Deficit Day, again, it's a hypothetical day. Imagine that the federal government on January 1st received all the money from all the sources, all the tax revenues it's going to get for the year. It gets it in one lump sum on January 1st. And then it starts spending according to that year's budget, same amount every day. And this year it happens to be $19.4 billion a day. So $19.4 billion a day every day. And of course, we spend more than we bring in. So at some point in the calendar, that pile of money runs out. And the question is, when? That's Deficit Day. The bigger your deficit, the sooner the money runs out. The smaller your deficit, the later the money runs out.
And this functionally, if you really want to think about it, is like you get all of your salary on the 1st of January, and you just spend like a maniac, and then sooner or later you run out of salary because you were stupid, and then every day after that you got to whip out your credit card and hope you can cover it with next year's salary.
Right.
And in the meantime, you got to pay a whole busload of credit card interest on the loan because credit cards are a loan. Deficits are a loan. So
we've figured out Deficit Day for this year to be September 21st, which is a little bit beyond the average. The average since 2001 is September 12.
Does that include the COVID years?
Well, it's the average, including the COVID years. It's the average of September.
Well, in the COVID years, the COVID spending was gargantuan.
Oh, yeah. I'll talk about COVID in a minute because that's eye-opening. But on average, Deficit Day is September 12, which means the government has enough money each year to make it through all but the last 3.5 months of the year. So if you think about that in terms of a household with a monthly budget, it's like running out of money on the third week of the month.
Well,
Every month.
I'm just eyeballing it, but it's like what, 37%,
Yeah, give or take.
give or take.
But imagine if you ran a household, monthly budget, you run out of money on the third week of the month, every month, for 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years. You never adjust your behavior. You
Yeah.
never think to yourself, oh my God, I'm spending too much money. I don't have that much money. I can't raise that much money. All these thoughts would occur to a responsible human being.
Well, yeah, because a responsible human being has to borrow and then pay it back. Of course, the government
That's right.
doesn't have to pay it back. It has to pay the interest on the debt, but that's another topic
we'll get to that.
entirely. That's becoming...
We'll get to that in a minute. Yep.
But I prepared an interesting graphic, which we can show now that we have video with our podcast. I prepared an interesting graphic that shows it's a circle, and the circle is all the federal spending broken down by parts. So the biggest chunk, or two of the biggest chunks, are the interest on the debt, Social Security, and Medicare. Those three occupy half of this circle. So of all the spending the government's going to do, half of it are those three things: interest on debt, Social Security, Medicare. Add in Medicaid, which is another big section, and you've got like 2/3 of the circle. All of the mandatory spending, which is all that stuff, the interest on debt, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, also income assistance and a few other things. Put those all together, the mandatory spending is 3/4 of the circle, leaving 1/4 of the circle to be the stuff Congress can actually play with. That's the discretionary stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
and half of that quarter that's left is defense.
okay, a couple of things. If we only have a quarter left, that means we can't cover the 3/4 with the amount we're bringing in.
Oh,
we can't
yes.
cover mandatory. We can't cover mandatory spending with the amount we're bringing in.
You're absolutely right. Now, here's the thing. On this graphic, we have the circle that represents all of the things that the government spends on. And then around the circle, I draw this line. It starts at the top, January 1st, and it goes around, and it stops. And that's when the money runs out, September 12th. And it stops before you get to the end of the mandatory spending.
That's right. So you could eliminate all of the discretionary spending, every single thing the government does except for those few mandatory things, and you would still not balance the budget.
Yep.
So when people say just cut defense, okay, let's not just cut defense, let's cut all of it.
Yeah.
Because you still can't balance the budget.
Yeah, it's still
That's how
not
bad
enough.
it is. And when people say things like, you can't cut Social Security, the only response I have is, you can't fix this without cutting Social Security.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's
There
no
it
way.
is.
The numbers,
No
the
way.
math just simply doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And you could be offended by that and angry by it all you want, but you can't defeat math.
Yeah. You know, people are going to say things like, well, you know, we need to spend more wisely, and spending more wisely is not going to get you what you're looking for. There's simply not that. Granted, there's fat to be cut in the government. There's not nearly enough fat to get to where we need to get.
You might recall that was Elon Musk's job.
Right.
We're just going to find all the stuff to cut, and then we'll be a balanced budget, and I'll leave.
And how much did he cut?
And he didn't do any of that first part. The only thing he actually did was leave.
Right. Well, he did cut. He cut the 200,000 workers. I saw a number at one point that estimated that his cuts were supposed to be worth $100 billion. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I do. I don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, let's even suppose it's true that he actually cut $100 billion, which sounds like a lot.
5 days worth of spending.
Yeah, it's less than 10% of what you need to cut.
Well, that's 5 days worth of spending, isn't it?
Let's see, 100. Yeah, it's about 5 days worth of spending. That's right.
5 days of government spending. That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a rounding error, right? And all you're going to get is rounding errors until you address the mandatory spending. This is the problem. Can other things be cut too? Sure. But other things won't yield a balanced budget. And if we don't balance the budget, we have to pay interest on the debt.
Yeah, and that's where things start to become a problem, because people will say things like, well, you can't apply the same kind of accounting to the government that you apply to households. And I think that's just a bunch of hand waving, frankly. I mean, there are differences, such as the government can roll over the debt infinitely, but the government still
tanks and stuff, right? Tanks and aircraft to bomb people.
Yeah,
right? There is the use of force.
But it's got to pay the interest. And we're now at the point that the interest on the debt, and this is an interesting thing. If you look up the numbers for interest on the debt, you'll find something in the hundreds of billions of dollars. You will not find the correct answer. The correct answer is 1.2 trillion. And the reason you won't find the correct answer is because when the numbers are published, they don't read the fine print. They're not publishing the interest expense. They're publishing the net interest. That is, the interest the government has to pay minus the interest that Social Security receives from the money it has loaned to the government.
What a bunch of bullshit that is.
Yeah. What matters is the entire amount that the government spent. That's $1.2 trillion. That's what it's got to come up with every year.
What do we spend on defense every year?
Defense is, I believe, 700 to 800 billion.
Congratulations, America. You spend more on the interest of your debt than you do on everything concerning
way
defense.
More. Yeah.
Roughly twice as much, even.
Yeah, forget about, mothballing an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, good luck.
Mothball everything. Send everyone home. Close all of the military bases, and you still aren't there.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. And we do this article year after year after year. And one year, God help us all, a congressman read it into the congressional record.
That's right. I found it, actually. I Googled it. Yeah.
He was so pissed. And, I wish that would happen a lot more often. But frankly, it's in every politician's interest to keep kicking this can down the road. It's in no one's interest, literally no one, to fix this problem.
Yeah, and that's going to remain the case until the problem becomes so large that you have no choice.
Well,
it starts to impinge on other parts of your life.
Yeah, I would take a darker tone, and I would say it's going to continue this way until the problem is literally insoluble.
Yeah.
It is still soluble at this point. We could solve this problem if we had the political will to do it. It would take a regime of austerity, the likes of which the United States has never seen.
Well, I don't think it's that bad. I'm thinking back to the austerity during, World War II, for example. I'm less concerned about the magnitude of the austerity. And that's not to say that there's not going to be austerity, right? I'm less concerned about the magnitude than I am the duration. To pull this off, you've got, and you and I have come up with a plan to do this.
We have?
Whatever plan it is, ours or somebody else's, it's going to be, and I'm not kidding you, it's going to be a 50 to 100 year plan.
That's right. Because
and we can't get Congress to stick to a plan for 2 years.
2 years? 6 months? Come on. Look, in order to get this done, two things have to happen. First, you've got to balance the budget. And that will never happen. After you balance the budget, you have to work yourself into a condition where you have budget surpluses consistently over time. And only a budget surplus can be applied to a debt. It's literally that simple. You can go into more debt to pay off your debt, right? And you can refinance your debt from time to time. And this is why Donald Trump is so persistent in pushing the Fed to lower interest rates. Because when the interest rates get lowered, the service on the debt becomes much, much easier. And even the 0.25% that the Fed reduced today, as we record September 17, Constitution Day, by the way, even a 0.25% makes a gigantic difference in budgetary matters.
Oh, yeah, when you've got a debt of $37 trillion. 1 percentage point change in the interest rate on $37 trillion is $370 billion. That's like what, 15 NASA's or something? It's
half the
like
Defense
40% of Department of Defense. Yeah, something like that.
About
yeah,
half,
just
yeah.
for 1%.
That's right. So 0.25% even is a gigantic deal, but you need budget surpluses to pay off a debt. You have to take in more than you spend.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. However, I argue that you can still get away with not paying off the debt as long as you don't make it worse. And that's because the economy keeps growing over time. If you can get a balanced budget and keep a balanced budget for 100 years, at the end of the 100 years, the economy has grown so much and the government's revenue has grown so much that $37 trillion in debt doesn't mean that much.
Yeah, no, it would mean almost nothing.
Yeah.
But that would take literally a century.
Oh, but it would take a century, right?
And it would take, and hear us when we say this, it would take a century of balanced budgets.
Mm-hmm.
The last balanced budget we had was under Eisenhower.
Yeah.
We haven't had a balanced budget since 1950s.
Oh, speaking of which, we've said this before about Eisenhower, and you're absolutely correct. That's the last time we had a balanced budget. And people,
I think off the top of my head, it was 1958.
58, yeah, somewhere in there. But people will routinely send me data on the federal deficit and point out that we had a surplus under Clinton.
People love saying that.
And I finally delved into this deeply in preparation for this discussion and discovered that what's going on here.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? We already know that it's not true because all you have to do is look at the federal debt numbers, put everything else aside, and only look at the federal debt. And the federal debt has gone up every year since Eisenhower, even under Clinton. Yep. Now, it didn't go up nearly as much under Clinton. I don't want to take credit away from him and them. Largely, I'm going to leave that alone. But you can get to the accounting tricks that they pulled now. But people don't have to have your level of insight to understand this. All you have to do is look at the debt numbers.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like your credit card balance. If your credit card balance goes up 1 month to the next, you had a deficit.
You had a deficit. That's right.
And same thing here. And it's a thing, you can't hide it, that number. The debt is what it is, and we can see it, it goes up every single year. So I'm trying to figure out finally, okay, so why is it that the debt goes up and up, which we knew it goes up and up, and that's why we say Clinton didn't have a surplus, and yet the official deficit numbers do show a surplus? I found the answer. Money that the federal government borrows from Social Security, from federal pensions, from military pensions. It has a name. It's called intergovernmental loans. Those intergovernmental loans that come into the federal government, they go on the books as a revenue.
Oh, ain't that some right there?
Yeah. And it's
so. Let me get this straight. I can go into the other room, find where all my wife's money is, assuming she has any. Take it and bring it into my office and say, look, revenue.
Yeah, let me give you an analogy that hits much closer to home. Imagine that your household is running a deficit. You're spending more than you bring in. And
I don't have to imagine that.
Over here, you've put money aside. You put $10,000 aside for your kids' college fund. And you're short $500 this month. So you go over, you take $500 out of the kids' college fund. And not only do you take it out, you call it revenue. And you say, look, I don't have a deficit anymore. In fact, I could take out $1,000. Now I have a surplus. That's what the government's doing. And people will say, well, it's just the government borrowing from itself. And in this case, you could make an argument, I'm borrowing from myself because I set up the kids' college fund, and that fiction works until it comes time for your kid to go to college, and that pot of money is empty. And that pot of money is the Social Security Fund.
There is no Social Security fund.
No, it's a bunch of IOUs, and we're going to hit a point. And we used to say we're going to hit a point in the not too distant future. Now it's going to be like in the next 5 years or so, when we have to make some hard choices because there are people who want to withdraw, and that money just simply isn't there.
And there are really only two hard choices, one or the other. You will tax the working class at a much higher rate, or you will cut the benefits of Social Security.
Yep.
That's it. There's no other option.
Words and Numbers is part of the Civil Network. Civil is a streaming platform dedicated to upgrading civilization by exploring better ways for people to organize, innovate, and thrive. At Civil, we believe that societies flourish when their members honor the civic equality of all people and engage with one another through cooperation. Civil seeks great minds from around the world to share bold ideas for fostering healthy, dynamic societies. By creating space for honest disagreement among people who share a commitment to building a better future, Civil offers a refreshing alternative to divisive punditry and insular echo chambers. Words and Numbers is freely available, but those who subscribe to Civil will access exclusive content, including regular live streams and conversations with remarkable people who are working to build a better society. For more information and to subscribe, visit civil.com. That's CIVL.com. Use the code Words and Numbers, that's one word, for 50% off an annual subscription.
People will say things like, well, let's just tax the rich more. Look, a couple things about taxing the rich more. First off, look at the numbers. Don't look at social media, look at the numbers, and you will see that the rich are already paying the lion's share of taxes. I think it's something like the richest, what is it, 1% pay something like 20% of all taxes. The richest 50% pay 97% of all taxes. Right?
That's right.
So that's
the rich
item
are the
number
only
one.
people. The rich are the only people actually paying taxes.
Right, yeah. Item number two is, even if you were to say, okay, I don't care how much they're paying, let's just make them pay more, and you took every penny they have, it's still not enough.
And you can't do it next year.
Oh, yeah, then you don't have any rich people, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's only really one well, there are many answers here, but the problem is so obvious. We spend more than we take in. These two numbers need to be at least the same. We should take in more than we spend, but they need to be at least the same.
Yeah, you're right, and people will agree with us when we say that. People left, right, and center. And then they'll ask, if it's that simple, how come nobody's doing it? And the answer is because each one of us who agree wholeheartedly that the government needs to spend less money, when the question comes, okay, what should we cut? Each one of us has something different that we don't want cut, and will fight tooth and nail to prevent getting cut.
That's right.
And then you get no cuts.
And look, you can literally cut anything at all in your life, in the world, whatever, by 5 or 10%. And have a difference, but a livable difference. And we're not even willing to do that. And that would put us pretty close, actually. If we were willing to do that, then we could see what other tweaks we needed to make. Just cutting everything by 10%. When you and I worked it out, we figured 15% across the board. And
yes.
That's the cut you need to make, something like that. And then for 6 years, you've got to hold the line without increasing spending a single penny.
Right.
And that's going to have effects on the economy, right? That's going to make people's lives kind of miserable. And yet, that's the necessary first step.
Yeah, it is. And I think economically you get a couple of effects. One, clearly, there are people who, you and I could cut 10%. Most people who are listening to us could cut 10%. There's a lot of people who can't.
That's right.
That's one problem you're going to have.
And those are exactly the same people that a lot of this money goes to.
Yeah, right. But on the flip side, I think if you were to tell Americans, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to cut everything 15%, we're going to hold no increases for 6 years, while all of that is incredibly hard, I think you also set up Americans to understand that things are going to be way better in year 7
That's right.
than they would otherwise be.
That's right.
And so, all right, we tighten our belts for 6 years, but we know things are going to be much better still and better for our kids and their kids and so forth.
And Ant, I've said this since I was a boy. I think my mother used to say it too. I can withstand anything, literally anything, if you tell me when it will end.
Yes, right.
You can't be in an overwhelming hell with no determined endpoint. But if you say you're going to have to tighten your belt pretty significantly for the next 7 years, I could make peace with that.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but notice what happens. By not doing that, it does become an open-ended thing. You know, from my perspective, this is never going to end.
Well, it is.
Well, it's going to, by the laws of mathematics, it's going to end. And the longer we wait, the worse the end's going to be.
The worse it will be. It's going to, and for people who are just kind of casually wondering what the end looks like, it looks exactly like Venezuela.
Yeah,
except
it does.
Worse because there's so many more of us.
And I suggest we're already starting to see the beginnings. The Fed, of course, Fed just cut interest rates. It was about this time last year that the Fed was saying, a number of economists were noting that inflation was sticky. It just wasn't coming down. It wasn't coming down. And all the forecasts are showing that inflation is going to stay elevated compared to what it used to be. I claim that's what's going on.
If only a couple of guys could have predicted exactly that. Oh, wait, that was us.
Yeah, because ultimately what happens here, and we'll go into more detail on it in next time's episode, but basically what's happening is we're getting this higher inflation as the cost of the federal government running these nonstop deficits.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So on the one hand, from earlier in this very episode, we've got a couple of things driving up prices. And then on the other hand, we got a couple of other things driving up prices. The result, not surprisingly, is that prices will be driven up and they will stay there. And people forget, and I don't know how they forget, but depending on who happens to hold office at any given point in time, they will announce, with no data to support it, that inflation is zero. It's not zero and it's never zero, so shut up. But worse yet, people believe it. And I can't understand how they believe it if they leave their homes. Because I'm not allowed to go to the grocery store because I have a meltdown every time I walk in. We talked about this earlier. And why do I have a meltdown? Because I see how much my beloved Coke Zero costs and I can't buy it. Right? I just can't. And these are the choices you have to make because there are trade-offs to everything. And when everything gets more expensive, you don't get to have the things you want. And politicians will say, look at that, we got inflation under control. And if they ever did that, which they don't, prices are now at a much higher level and they never go back. Right? There's de-inflation and there's disinflation.
Yeah, you're right. And I want to go back to the statement you just said because it's a beautiful quote. You said, as prices rise, we can't have what we want. And let me add to that. We can't have what we want because the government is getting what it can't afford. We are literally paying for that deficit spending every time we go to the grocery store and pay way more for food than we used to.
Yeah. Now I can't have Doritos for crying out loud. Great. Next week on This American Life. Nah, I don't think I can say that. I don't think I'm allowed to say that. But anyway.
But you said something in this episode that I want to put in your head. We need to do an episode on Social Security. You and I worked some time ago. Well, I don't think we have. You and I concocted a way to shut down Social Security over time with minimal pain.
That's
And
right.
we talked about it, we wrote about it, but it was far enough ago. I want to say it was maybe 10 years ago that nobody paid any attention.
Let's redo the math and get back to it.
Yeah.
Now I'm all excited. I feel a little better. And we can end on this happy note. And Aunt, I want you to have a lovely life, and I want you to have everything you want, even though we all know we have to make trade-offs in these
I'm not the
difficult
government.
times. Yeah, no, and I'm not either. But that's no reason to be rotten to each other. That's every reason to be nicer to each other, because we're all carrying this particular cross, and it hurts some of us a lot more than others, and you don't know the weight of the cross that anybody's carrying. So just treat everybody as if the weight were unbearable, because that will make the world a better place. Be nice to each other. Be that nice to each other. We really need it. And why are you people still here? Anyway, people need to shut this damn thing off when we're done, but they never do. So here we are, and I have to say, I did a profoundly stupid thing this week. Have you done a profoundly stupid thing this week?
I try and avoid profoundly stupid things.
I do too, but people often, especially on Twitter, will question my intelligence, and you know, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm self-aware. And yet when they say, you're a moron, I think, well, no, I'm not. But then I do something, and I think, well, maybe those Twitter trolls have a point. Because just a couple days ago, I'm sitting outside, because I have to sit outside, because I'm not allowed to smoke cigars in the house. Why not? I have a wife.
I have to tell the listeners, we just got reinstated the beep feature, and James is making full use of it.
Oh, go yourself. Anyway, this isn't the official episode. Now I do whatever the I want. Anyway, I can't smoke cigars in the house because I have a wife, and she always about the smell. So, so I have to go outside. And if I have to go outside, it's Arizona. I go outside to have a cigar, and it's 117 degrees. So I need something to take my mind off that particular brand of misery. What do? I bring a TV outside. I figure, well, I could never do this before because cables, but now I have a streaming service and I have pretty good Wi-Fi out on the back porch. It, I'll put the TV out there. So I throw a TV out there, a couple of chairs, I put my feet up, I smoke a cigar. I'm as happy as a clam, but it's 117 degrees. So you have to drink a lot. If you don't drink pretty consistently, you die. And I mean this quite literally. There were a couple of hikers here. People love hiking in Arizona, and morons like to hike in Arizona in the summer, and real morons hike in the summer in Arizona in the afternoon. And a couple of morons went out and died on a trail a couple of weeks ago. That's how hot it is. They brought all this water and all this stuff with them, and they died. Right?
Despite bringing all the water and everything.
That's right. It's that hot.
Wow.
Here. So
wow.
I sit there and I drink lots of sodas from a can when we can afford to buy sodas in cans, which, you know. And then the cans pile up on my little circular table, and all of a sudden the table is no longer a table. It's a platform that holds Coca-Cola cans. So I'm watching TV, and it's football season because, you know, what the hell else is it going to be? And I'm watching the games, and I'm clicking away with the remote, and I got to light a cigar, so I put the remote on two of the cans, and I'm lighting my cigar, and I hit the table with my elbow, and the remote control for my Roku went right into my cup of coffee. And now I can't watch my TV anymore.
Did the channel start just turning on their own?
No, it just won't do anything.
Just nothing.
And well, let me take that back, because what actually happens is even funnier than it doing nothing. I took the remote and I put it in the refrigerator, figuring, all right, let's get all the moisture out. The refrigerator is a dehumidifier. So I put it in there for like a day and a half, and I went and I took it out, pointed it at the TV, and nothing happened. I'm like, shh. And I don't know what we always do the same dopey shit when this happens, right? I took the batteries out as if that were the problem. And I put them back in and I clicked and it worked.
No way.
But it only works if I take out the batteries every time I want to click something. So literally, I got to take out the batteries to turn the TV on. I got to take out the batteries to select YouTube TV. I got to take out the batteries to look at what's on YouTube TV. I have to take out the batteries to scroll down to look at what else is on YouTube TV. And you could see what a mess this becomes in terms of time wasted taking batteries on for remote control.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, so
I can see you there, just getting madder and madder.
I paint in profanity. The swearing on the back porch is downright artistic. It's epic and artistic. And I know deep in my heart it's all my fault. And now I got to go buy another streaming device. And God, man, they're getting more expensive too. And I have to choose between streaming devices and food.
No, there's a solution. You can download a Roku app onto your phone. I've seen people do this, and then your phone...
Yeah, but that only works if you have a Roku TV.
Didn't you say you have a Vizio?
I have a Vizio TV with a Roku box.
Yeah, no, it talks to the Roku box. We have a Roku box as well, and I can use a phone.
I will look into this very evening.
James is happy once again until he drops his phone in the coffee.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves with the happiness business, but I will say that it's kind of a minor miracle and something that almost never happens. You've actually been useful to me. Have a nice time. I used to say have a nice week, but, twice a week I don't know what to say anymore at the end. So I'll see you next time.
See you next time, James.
Words and Numbers is a Civil original podcast. We work with Civil to advance their mission of upgrading civilization by exploring ideas that promote civic equality and cooperation. We believe the most pressing issues humans face, war, poverty, debt, tribalism, arise from coercive institutions that bring out the worst in us. We at Civil look to voluntary solutions to these and other problems. We invite you to explore Civil's new platform at civil.com. That's CIVL.com.